Testing 1, 2, 3. Hello friends, thank you for joining me today. Just a moment here, let me get all straightened up. All right, hello and happy Super Bowl Sunday to you. A little bit of an unusual twist to get a broadcast in on Sunday, but glad to do it. All right, this is Daily Art Adventure number 827 with my broken clapper. That makes it even more ludicrous, doesn't it? Right? You want to send me another clapper? Anyway, I'm calling it Intermediate Oil on Glaze, and as the title on YouTube there indicates, intermediate. Hello, Susan. Are you going to watch the Super Bowl tonight, Susan? Look at other than when I'm painting, at a function where I'm wearing a tux, I don't usually dress up this nicely, but I'm caught today between church in the morning and a Super Bowl party in the evening. So I'm not going to bother to change my clothes. I'm just, my broken clapper. And I gave serious thought to, of course, painting without broadcasting. But don't worry, the urge passed quickly. And I decided, no, what the heck? I've got to broadcast. I don't really need to broadcast, but anyway, I decided, in fact, to broadcast. So my new modus operandi is to a little brown. I don't usually use brown anywhere with these sticks, but the impulse just grabbed me. So there you go. So for the last year and a bit, not 2 years, I use these oil sticks pretty much anytime I'm going to do an oil glaze. So let me explain myself just again for anybody who's new here. I worked on this yesterday. I did considerable work, some work after I quit broadcasting. In these buildings, I remember, a little bit over here. Anyway, today everything is dry. I ran my hand over it a while ago. There was one area here that was a little bit tacky, like sticky, just your finger drags. I don't pick up paint, but you can tell when paint's not dry, it's a little bit more sticky. Anyway, there it is right there. So that means I used some paint right there with not enough liquid or not enough white titanium alkyd. But I think I'm okay. In fact, you know what? Let's make sure that a little bit. Let's pick up a terry cloth rag, and just to make sure I'm not doing any slow dry on top of fast dry. Other way around. Fast dry on top of slow dry. I'm just removing. Yeah, there we go. That's better. Hold on. I just dragged my fingers through that marker. All right, as I was going to say, everything's dry then. And I'm still in the final edit phase. I didn't finish yesterday. I got, but so far and then quit. And that's always disappointing, like, darn, I was hoping to get further along, right? Do you understand that impulse? It's like, I was hoping to get more done. That's the bad news, but I throw myself a bone, a consolation prize. Well, yeah, but guess what? That means I get to do another glaze, and I go, yay, because I like glazes. And every time you do a glaze, you say, I like it pretty much. I like it pretty much. I just wish it was more. I just wish it was more. Blue up here, and maybe blue down here. In fact, I went went and fetched a picture that I took of the last time, like 3 weeks ago. I did the same view 3 weeks ago. That's why this is a commission. Somebody saw me doing this and said, ooh, do one for us. Got it? So it's a commission. I'll take it. They're offering me money. And I'm an artist, so I'm a sucker for money, you know. It's a slightly different view, of course, but beyond that, it's quite a different painting. But I look at that and say, well, is there anything that I like about that? And the answer is yes, there are some things I like about that. So let's get started right away. One of the things I like is a little bit more blue at the top. And which blue? I don't know. Phthalo or ultramarine? I don't know. So I've got a mixture of both. And some of the same blue, I think, down here at the bottom. I'm picking up paint right now. Yeah, and then some more. Well, this building right here actually is blue in real life. The skin of this building is blue tinted glass, so it always has quite a blue look to it. All right, so that's step one. One more blue up here in the sky and more blue down here at the bottom. And I think that's all at the moment anyway. That's all for the blue. I'm going to take just a minute and clean these brushes. I have a canvas on the floor down there at my feet, and I often use it to clean brushes. Now, what next? Yellow. And it looks to me like just about pure Indian yellow. Indian yellow, when you put it out on your palette, it looks quite brown. But when you make it transparent, it's a very intense yellow. See that? I don't know if you can see how intense that is, but trust me. So let me ask a question. You regulars know the answer to this. So why am I thrilled? Why do I consider it a consolation prize, so to speak, when I get to do another glaze? The reason is real simple. I usually say it in a strange colloquial manner. The answer is because ain't a color made that don't look better with something else on top of it. Which again is another way of saying, a strange way of saying, transparent colors are more rich, more interesting, more complex than opaque colors. I'm doing oxide red over here, which is a brown, very, very close to burnt sienna. So one reason I like doing a glaze is what I just said, because it makes everything look better. Because transparents are more rich, more complex, more prettier. Bear with me just a minute. I need to clean up my palette over here. My pile of oxide red is all oxidized. And I'm going to scrape off what's left with a razor, and then put out a fresh pile of oxide red. Again, don't be confused by the name. Oxide red is brown, like burnt sienna. And I'm going to do some more oxide red right now over here. Okay, so I interrupt myself as always. Let me start that. This is why do I consider it a privilege and a thrill, a joy, a delight to do another glaze. Two reasons. One is because all transparents are prettier than opaques, and in the final edit layer, of course, I'm doing all opaques. The other reason I'm always happy to do one more glaze is because it's a easy color correction tool, right? Because you say to yourself, I like it pretty much. I just wish it was more blank, and the blank is a color. So in this case, for instance, I said to myself, I like it pretty much. I just wish it was more blue up here, more yellow warm in here, and more brown here. And boom, a few minutes later, and it is done. So the joy is very easy labor, very few minutes of effort for huge benefit. Does that make sense? Not much time at all. 5 minutes of painting, and my painting is, I'm making up numbers here, 15% better. So 5 minutes of painting to make it that big an improvement on your painting is real good use of your time. Does that make sense? All right, so the glaze is finished. Now I'm probably, I'll just say I'm cleaning off. I'm using 2 palettes, by the way, a cracked small palette. I used that for a minute ago for glazing. Now back to my normal. See, I couldn't do it here because these paints are all still good and I still want all these colors. So, now, what do I normally do after a glaze? Do you know? Maybe you don't know. I probably haven't said this enough times. Normally after a glaze, I do more drawing. That is to say, with drawing in dark details. And indeed, there are several places in this painting, as I was doing final edit yesterday afternoon, I says to myself, oh man, I could really use some darkness here and there and here and there, and by that I meant dark details, some dark lines. All right, so yesterday I was doing final edit, which is light. That's the key point here, light opaque highlights. But as I was doing light opaque highlights, I would say, oh, you know what, I could do with some more dark details here and there and here and there. I'm not telling you where, I'm just saying here and there. All right, so the good news, I've just done another glaze. That opens up the door, like a natural point at which to do some more dark details. Once again, I mentioned yesterday that I think a good description of good painting process is every single step in the process is very abstract, but the cumulative effect of all those steps is surprisingly realistic or representational. And I'm already surprised. Well, I like to think I like it when that happens, when I'm painting along and all of a sudden you know, the image emerges out of the mist, sort of unbidden, unforced by me, just by maintaining, staying the course, so to speak, just by continuing to paint by principle, one could say. All the principles that I'm mentioning to you all the time, all of them, all the time. Then, lo and behold, surprise, 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 I know my head's right anyway, forgive me just a second. All right. And surprise, surprise, in this case, you know, the buildings actually start looking like themselves, start looking like buildings, start looking like these particular buildings, and so on and so forth. And it feels to me like they are appearing almost as if by magic, because I'm just gently nudge, every layer and every stroke is just a gentle nudge toward the image, the effect that I want, not a wholesale, you know, forcing of the image to appear. All right, and I'm going to sit down for a minute. It's easier than raising up the canvas. This canvas, by the way, is 36 by 48. So a fairly large canvas, I'd say. Not large by my standards, but still large by many paintings. And again, I'm doing dark details. I should have listed that there when I was describing or entitling, when I was titling this broadcast. I called it Final Edit. I should have said intermediate glaze and more drawing, really. I hope to get to Final Edit here in a few minutes. But I'm not there right now. Do you understand? This is not Final Edit. This is drawing. Not to be confused with Final Edit. Final Edit is light, opaque highlights. And this is dark, transparent details. Whoops, that person is too tall. I'm thinking this is a figure over here. It just turned into a NBA center. That won't do. I mean, NBA centers got to live somewhere, we all know, but they don't live in my paintings. they got to go somewhere else. They're not allowed to stay in my paintings, because if you do paintings with 7-foot plus figures in them, people will object. Okay, I'm almost done though. One of the things you might notice is that, again, each layer, each phase is a little bit simpler than the one before it. Oh, I lost some street lights last time, and somewhere in the last couple layers. I need to remedy that fact. street lights and some traffic lights also. All right. That tone of all right means all right. I'm done with something. Indeed. So I'm done with details in dark transparent. Now back to final edit. Lifting out a little bit. I forgot to do that before I started drawing. All right, good enough. I think I'm going to keep using these brushes. By golly. Give myself. And you guys are chatting up a storm over here. Hello, Uncle 60. Uncle says Winsor Newton stopped selling oil sticks. No kidding. That's interesting. I'm going to do a little fuzz layer. Oh boy, this painting's getting more complicated, isn't it? I said I was going to do final edit, and instead I did drawing, and then instead of final edit, next I'm doing some more fuzz. So sorry for the confusion. I left a part of an aspect of this painting completely unfinished, and I sort of knew it, I just didn't get around to tackling it yesterday, and that is the highlights of headlights and taillights. These highlights will get much higher, lighter. The language is failing me. Highlighter, or higher lighted, or higher lit in subsequent layers. But I certainly want to begin indicating traffic lights. Do you see the reflection of the lights down there? And then there are, of course, tail lights of cars going the other way. There, that already looks a lot more like a city, doesn't it? Now I want to do some traffic lights up here too. Ooh, those little bits of red, those are really sweet. Let's continue now with street lights. I've got a nice row of street lights indicated in the acrylic stage up here, and I had them over here, but somehow they got buried. They got covered up in one of my glaze phases, so I'll reintroduce them. So you can imagine something as bright as a street light. You may not, it's not effective to take them all the way up to full brightness in one layer. It will look phony. It will look like something stuck on like a postage stamp, stuck in that kind of way. So you bring up the lights, any kind of lights. You bring it up little by little, layer by layer. Some of these lights probably in the very final step, the sparkle step, I've started calling it, some of these lights will in fact be nearly, not quite, but nearly pure titanium white applied with a palette knife. Some, I've known, not the far away ones of course, but perhaps up close. Not this one, it's too close to the edge of the painting, but maybe this one right here. And that color's a little bit too bright. As I said, I want to bring it up layer by layer by layer very slowly. Otherwise it will look like a late addition, an addendum to the painting, which in fact is exactly what it is. But I certainly don't want it to look like it. Same thing up here, a high street light. These are like, you know, Main Street lamps on posts, and these are big, high up in the air. You know, LED now, I think, is most of those, what most of those are. Let's do a little bit more fun. Light in the distance down here. Distance in this case is relative, distant down the block, right? Three, 4 blocks down the street. That's distant in this case. Not distant like the clouds in the sky. Those are real distant. I've mentioned this guy occasionally, a man whose work I respect highly, and evidently so does a lot of other people. The last time I was at Oil Painters of America, it was in Dallas, and I walked into the gallery in which the National OPA show was being held, and there was a G. Harvey painting sitting on the floor just inside the front door. And it wasn't very big, 20 by 30 maybe, something like that. G. Harvey painting for $95,000. Oh, that was exciting and that was depressing. I don't know. I think I'm going to go with, I mean, he's good. Don't get me wrong. Woo! But anyway, the reason I'm mentioning him is because he does a lot of cityscapes. Now, he's a little bit like Thomas Kincaid in that instead of cars and buses and modern vehicles, he'll tend to do horses and buggies and stuff like that. So, you know, a little bit sentimental. But would to God I could paint sentimental paintings as good as G. Harvey. Okay, but the reason I'm mentioning him is he does his distant city lights. He does a lot of cityscapes. Just look him up, G. Harvey, the letter G, and then Harvey. And he does his really the atmospheric perspective in his paintings is just a veritable school. You want to get schooled in atmospheric perspective, especially in the context of a city. Look at his. Now, of course, I mean, I guess it goes without saying that Jeremy Mann, same thing, a much younger man, Jeremy Mann. And I imagine his prices, he probably demands very similar prices too. Never paint with your fingers unless you need to. All right, now let's come up a little bit and do a little bit more final edit. So yesterday, in case you missed it, let me see what other chats you guys are doing. This painting is sold, yes. That's correct, Susan. The people that are buying the painting live in that apartment, right? Whoops, I just pointed. They live in that apartment right there, 4 down from the top, right in the corner. So I had to make sure that those lights, they left the lights on for me while I was down there painting. Uncle 60, you mentioned, yes, have I ever watched a Baumgartner painting restoration? The answer is yes, yes, yes. I've subscribed to his channel. It's one of the most relaxing things. It's like a good thing to watch over your toes on TV at night. His Baumgartner restoration. It's real peaceful and slow and relaxing and amazing. Yes, I enjoy his work very much. Again, trees. How do you do trees? You've heard me say, in layers, layer by layer by layer, phase by phase by phase. And now that I'm doing, I started to say, I'm sorry, I keep getting off topic. ADD. I don't know that I have ADD, but it makes a good joke. Yesterday, I described the final edit layer in different terms than I've ever used before. And I said there's basically 3 things you're doing, and they're alliterated, sort of. Color, keep, or cover. Color, keep, cover. By the word color, I mean and can you guys still see? Yeah, you see my palette? Okay, my messy palette. So all these mid, strange halftones down here, everything there was mixed to match something that's on the canvas. Okay, so color, and then keep or cover. That means I look at every mark, every square centimeter of the painting, and I look at it and say, do I want to keep that mark or do I want to cover it? Because since I've got opaque paint on my brushes, I have the power, and that's why this is the final edit layer, right? I have the power to cover stuff up because the paint on my brushes is opaque. All right. And when it comes to trees, I'm also asking myself, well, the whole time, I'm asking myself, no, let me say it a different way. When it comes to trees, I cover anything that doesn't look tree-ish. If it doesn't look like a branch or a limb, and of course in this case this is a bare tree, as you can see. If it doesn't, like there was a big blob of dark stuff here a minute ago. That's what prompted me to start saying this. There's a big dark blob, and it was okay, but no, it didn't look like branches. It didn't look like a tree. It looked like a big dark blob. So I cut it up. Now I might have overcut up, but I cut it up, and I keep getting in your guys' way. So here, let me move you around. I know the oblique angle of my painting is not quite as fun because you're seeing it more of a radical angle, but if you're not over there, I keep standing in front of you, so sorry about that. I'm going to move you over so I'm not blocking your view quite so often. Uncle reminded me yesterday that I need to reissue or update the Dan Nelson's steps to a painting list. It's been, I think, at least 6 months, probably more, since I updated that. You know, step 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. And a number of things have changed slightly over the last 6 months. And I'm curious myself. If I just sit down and really think about it for a while, I'm always curious to discover, even for my own self, let alone for, influencing any of you. I'm always curious to find out, So what's changed in the last 6 months? And we've talked about quite a bit too, but I seem to be changing at a fairly rapid rate, which gives me pause, because then I think, well, man, if I'm improving that quickly, how bad was I a year and a half ago? I'm not really, don't worry about me, I'm not really getting humble. Far be it from me to suddenly have a stroke of humility. Oh, no, that is not the danger right now. Anyway, I'm being facetious in both regards. It does seem a little odd, however, that I'm changing as fast as I am. Well, one answer for that is that this past year, literally 1 year ago, I changed focus, or turned a corner, and I was very conscious of this while it was happening. For 15 years, basically, my goal was to paint as fast as I can, because I decided 15 years ago that the best way to improve as an artist was, in fact, to paint as fast as I can. And I think at the time I even used the word 15 years. I said, after, hypothetically, this is 15 years ago, I'd say, which will make me the better artist in 15 years? If I create masterpieces, which was a viable, and what I mean by that is spending a lot of time on paintings, right? It wasn't too many years before that, 15 years ago, that I had done a copy of a Bouguereau painting. You can see it on my website, danielsnar.com, in the portrait section. And it's a pretty good copy of a Bouguereau. And frankly, it's a slight improvement on good old Uncle Bill's painting. Oh boy, the chutzpah of this guy. But it's true. His face looked a little weird, and I just straightened it out a little bit for him. Anyway, so that was doing masterpieces, so to speak, quote unquote, was an option. And but I decided, it was a conscious choice. I said, no, I think if I just paint like a bat out of hell, if I paint like a crazy man, if I paint fast, 2, 3, 4 hours per painting, wham, bam, 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 2 paintings a day, whatever, that'll make me better. And I think that was a correct decision, and I'm glad that I did it. But about a year ago, I suddenly went, wait a minute, I'm ready to change gears. I'm getting old enough. I've paid my dues. Now it's time to start painting better. So that's really, I'm sorry, I'm digressing all over the place and talking about myself. Gag. That's really why I'm changing so much in this past year, is because I actually have turned a conscious corner away from painting like a bat out of hell to, no, let's slow down and just do the best job we can instead of the fastest job we can. That has also impacted the way I do live event paintings as well. I don't advertise my services anymore, that I will come and paint, at your fundraiser. Again, like a bat out of hell for 3 hours, 4 hours, and then you're done and you sell it for whatever you can get for it. I've changed. Either now I start the painting ahead of time and finish it there, or I start it there and finish it later. Anyway, I'm talking about myself and boring you guys to tears. So sorry about that. Let's just move right along, shall we? I just realized I'm stretching too much, reaching too much. I can reach, by the way, my painting up here. But if you have to stretch too much, either high or low, to do your painting, I think you're going to end up shortchanging, because you get tired and sore and so on. You get tired of reaching way up there. So you shortchange the process. That's what I've discovered about myself. So I'm going to lower the whole painting down, which of course this particular easel doesn't do as easily as one of my big type easels. All right, so now what I'm painting is right at eye level. Maggie, Jumbo Jet Black, still out of stock. That happens around here occasionally too. That they have to wait several weeks for them to come back in. I think I'm going to use this photograph right here. Let me bring you around just for a minute. And one of you was saying you couldn't see the color of the sky. Let me show you that just for a minute. Okay, can you see it now? There's going to be a street light right here. That's why that's fuzzy and pale. But that's the color of the... It's a very warm... And there's the photograph I'm going to use for a bit, especially the lights in the side of this building. The building over here is not nearly developed enough for my taste. I want it to be considerably more finished, and of course considerable. You have to put that in quotes, right? One, two, three, four. Yeah. All right, I think that's enough. I think that's enough lights on in the building. Now these down here, this is parking deck, I think. The lights are quite a different shape. And let's fix the front of this building right here. This needs to be a much brighter building. It's catching reflection of the sun, or the sky anyway. Here we go. scrunching up my nose, literally, looking at these details over here. Oh yeah, and there are some lights in these buildings. Good. In these windows, I mean, over here. I felt like there ought to be, but I hadn't looked at the photograph in a while to see if there really were. And indeed, there are, so that's good. It's nice when things are as they should be, you know? There ought to be lights in those windows. Oh, there are. Good. I certainly don't want to do much way over here. Just a little bit. I've said often the dividing line between going loose toward the edges, which is generally what we want to do, right? Generally speaking, we want our paintings to get looser toward the edges and the corners. But there's a fine line between loose and just unfinished. The artist just walked away prematurely. And that's really hard to measure that accurately. For me, generally, just a few, emphasis on the word few, just a few hard edges or harder edges out there, usually with very mellow tones or values. Nothing stark like this, see? So it's a pretty subtle color shift, but the edge of that shift is fairly hard. So the effect is it looks like I hope it looks like I finished the painting, but didn't over-finish it, which of course is the #1 mistake that most of us struggle with, overworking a painting. I'm going to leave that for now, just for now. All right, it is time for me to wrap up. My wife and I are going to a Super Bowl party, and I hope your team wins. All of my teams lost weeks and weeks and weeks ago, so I don't have a big dog in this fight, but I look forward to hanging out with folks and eating some good junk food and watching a little bit of a game and watching some good commercials. All right, anything I need to? Uncle 60, yeah, good guess. The liquid does help eat the pencils a little bit. They also react fairly well to water. That's one of the things I like about those pencils, is they get soupy in both water and a medium like liquid. You're exactly correct. Hello, Barbara, please, yeah. You tried, and it scraped paint off. Well, if the paint has any thickness to it, certainly the pencil is just going to scrape it off. But usually that's okay, because usually the pencil will leave a dark line at the bottom of the valley. You're scraping through, you're plowing like a snow plow, plowing through wet paint, right? That's okay. I mean, expect it to do that, yes indeed. But usually it will still leave a dark mark. I think, now I'm not sure about this, but I think in fact this just happened yesterday. I picked up one of my black pencils and I started to draw with it, and nothing was coming off the pencil. In fact, I think the pencil had a layer of dry liquid on it. So I just resharpened it. Then it seemed to do fine. All right, got to run. I've already painted longer than I told my wife I would paint. So there we go. I'm happy with it. Tomorrow when I come back, this will all be dry. Will I glaze it again? Probably not, because I didn't get enough opaque stuff done to warrant another glaze. Does that make sense? I'm happy with it. I'm liking the feel of it quite a bit. Let me, sorry, zoom in a little bit. And again, the glare is bad. Let's try this. Does that any better? Oh, no, it's even worse. We do this all the time, don't we? How about that? Oh yeah, that's a little better. There we go. That might be what it looks like. All right. And yes, I use the pencils in every painting in the last 2, 3, 4 years. One tends to lose track of time at this age of life. All right. Thanks, y'all. Been fun. Have a good Super Bowl. Bye-bye.